Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni, and I'm an energy healer and alignment coach. I mainly work with people suffering from chronic pain, chronic illness, or unexplained medical conditions. And this podcast, Healing Conversations for Anything Chronic, really wants to bring the message and awareness that we can heal ourselves naturally. And so, without further ado, let me welcome our guest today, Lilian. So nice to have you. Hi.
Hi, good to be here.
Yes, it's wonderful. And today we are talking about Parkinson's, and I'm really curious to hear more about it. But first of all, more about you. So tell us something about you.
Eh, there is a lot I can start the story, a lot of different places, but I have for 8 years I've been studying Parkinson and how people can become better due to that, and that's made me some sort of a expert in regards to alternative healing of Parkinson's. And I I do the twist here that instead of having the focus of the diagnosis, because there's sort of a, to call it, stigma that it's progressive, I simply keep it the other way around and say, let's talk about the stress and see where it bring you to lower the stress. And by taking that perspective, which is allowed nowadays, to talk about stress, people slowly become better and better. And because I have my education as a biologist, long time before I took the education as a coach and therapist, I take a perspective that's very biological. So I'm looking at our uh, cousins, mammals, to get an understanding of what is stress.
This is amazing, actually, just to hear everything you just shared. Looking at stress as the root cause of what is causing conditions like Parkinson's. I also, of course, believe that it's stress is also the root cause of a lot of other chronic conditions. Um, Tell me, before we get there, I want to know a little bit more about what made you interested in that topic. What brought you there?
That's a little long and maybe a little different story, because when I was 30, my husband got cancer, and it was it's called Hodgkin's lymphoma, and we were told that it was primarily young men with a high level of education that got that form of cancer. And that, being a scientist, and he was a scientist in a university environment, that really uh, kicked something in my brain. What, isn't it just genetic? Isn't it just random we get this? Can you think yourself into a cancer disease? That really started it. But many years later, I heard a similar story with a man that has sclerosis, and helped himself out of the wheelchair again. And it's just, wait, shouldn't these diseases be chronic forever?
Mm.
And you just only could get worse and worse. So again, I got a crack in the old beliefs about how health and diseases work, and a lot of um, random things happened. But I ended up making a small, can we call, private study, where I took, as a new coach and therapist, I took 4 people with each a chronic disease, and gave them 5 long sessions each with what I could, because I became so curious about these things, and I got so amazed what I could do with a new coach education, not to heal them, but to take on a little symptom, a small thing, and I could always settle down that symptoms. that symptom not forever, but for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 hours, or a whole day. And that's way that. So I kept the scientific mindset and say there's something wrong with our current belief about how this work. There's something else going on, because I was a stress coach. So I started to use next 3 years, I use 5 hours a day digging into YouTube, digging into studies, digging into Google, find everything. And I thought I could find other coaches doing their things with chronic diseases, but I didn't find them. They probably were there out there somewhere. But what I found was a lot of survivor stories from people with serious conditions, illnesses like Parkinson, that became better or even healed and had no symptoms. And then I continued building upon the theory and found out that if we take on board stress, if we take on board our nature as mammals, then things started to make sense.
Amazing. So, so you coming to it now after your research. You want to look at stress. You look, so you have a person, and then you say, okay, first thing, let's look at the stress in your life. Um, Before I get there, actually, I want to know what made you focus mainly on Parkinson.
It was a little random because of these four guys. The one that were I continued with two of them. One, a woman with burning mouth syndrome, that I actually managed to help us her out of, and the other, the man with Parkinson, he was living in the same city as me, so it was easy to continue with him. And was it random? Yeah, you can say so, but I found it was amazing because it was a very visible symptom he had. So when we started, maybe his tremor was like this. You can find him in, if you search on my YouTube, some of my earlier YouTube videos. And when after the session, he was calm, and maybe he was calm 5 minutes, and then he started again. And I could ask, "What's going on now?" So it was not up to him, but I could immediately see what's going on. So I learned a lot about what does people with Parkinson's think that make them having more stress and more tremors.
Hmm. And what is that? What, I'm really
It's
curious.
it's it's often something that's not here. They're not thinking about the person next to them or the room. They are thinking about something tonight, something on the job tomorrow, something they cannot see, hear, and touch.
So they're not. So they are not in the present moment. They're
So they're not in
constantly.
the. So as soon as they go into another moment, the future moment, often it can also be regrets from yesterday, but as soon as they are not in the present moment, then there are maybe the fear of what will my manager say, because I have this big pile of tasks. What is the worst thing that can happen tomorrow? So there's a lot of fear of what might happen, fear of
Mhm.
future. It's a big one.
Yeah.
And it was just smart to learn from people with Parkinson, because I could so easily see what was going on, or I could ask as soon we have settled the tremor and then it start. I could ask, what's going on now? Oh, I'm thinking about my job tomorrow. Okay. So I learned so much because it was this visible symptom. In
Mhm.
other diagnoses, it can be a migraine, it can be, but the person in front of you cannot see the symptom immediately. You are dependent on what the person is telling you. So
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Yeah. And so how do you get started? I mean, I know that a lot of people, when you ask them about what are the stresses in your life, what are you scared about, what you fear, all of these kind of things, a lot of the time people they don't know, or they're not able to give you a fresh opinion. I find that a lot of the time they give you a very much rehearsed kind of answer. What is stressing you? Oh, it's my illness or my condition, and it doesn't go away. And they're kind of a lot of the time in that loop of whatever it is that they're experiencing. So how do you start the conversations?
I start the conversation by, you can actually say I have a little diary I give them to fill out. And in this diary, they 3 times a day note how is my symptoms when they are either the lowest or the highest. So it's not an average day or an average minute, but it's the minutes where the symptoms were the worst. And then in the second session, I asked, did you find any connection between these symptoms? What happened in that moment where they were the worst? And it's often something like I'm going out to meet new people, some people I don't know, or I was out shopping. Um, had a visitor, my sister visited me, or a cousin I haven't seen for a long time. And then you have your keyword. What's going on here? And you can start. Why is that different than Why is it different to be out in a crowd than sit home in your chair? You can ask a lot of questions. And so I use the symptoms as a guide, not as much what people think, but they start with where is my symptoms the biggest? And then we have a conversation around what was going on just before. So it became a stressful moment.
Mhm. So you, when they see when they write things down, they can actually see for themselves. They can really track, as well as you can do it as well. Track when things are a little bit better and when they're a little bit worse. And I think even that in itself is really interesting conversation, because a lot of the time when we think about illnesses or conditions, all of that, we do think that if it's chronic, then it's constantly the same, but it's not.
It's not. And by zooming in on these micro moments where it was either more relaxed or more intense, then people slowly can connect the dots. If they do something stressful, it's worse. If they do something relaxing, it's less. So
Mm.
that's the starting point. So people connect the dots. It's not just a random signal symptom that there's nothing, you cannot see what's going on. It's actually bigger. When the more stressed you are, the bigger is your symptoms. Of course, there are some symptoms it take a little while before, so there may be 5-10 minutes from the stressor came and to the muscle gets stiff or whatever. But often people, when they start thinking about it, they can pinpoint it. It was when my manager asked me to take on the next task, or they it's pretty easy for people to find out what's going on.
Yeah, that is interesting. So I've worked with quite a few different people, different illnesses, different conditions, and although I also talk about stress and the emotions that are behind or that contribute to the chronic conditions, I definitely 100% believe that when we change, when we understand our emotions, when we understand the stress, we can heal. We can really let go of all of these symptoms. But what is like the next step that you do? Because sometimes, like I said before, I find that a lot of the time the conversation is kind of repeating itself. Like I say, someone is, um, you know, they're in the story. They're in the story of the illness or the condition. So then, although they can say something that is very in the immediate moment, yes, I understand what is stressful. So they understand it on an intellectual level. How do they actually start having that journey of releasing the stress in the work that you do?
If you can say, as we don't use the intellectual thought so much,
Mm,
and as you know, people has a lot of trauma, big and small. I call them body memories because it's not the size of them that did, tell us anything about the size of the symptoms. It's can be something very innocent from childhood that was for an adult was not a big thing, but for a child is an enormous thing. I just had a coach that I just had a coach call with a person that had an enormous tremor like this, and I tried to let him sort of rehearse that tremor full blown. And what did we end up with? We end up with a situation when he was 6 years old and should learn to swim. And the swimming trainer let go of him, and he did like this and was nearly drowning. So it's not always like that, but the symptoms often tell the story itself if we sort of bypass the thought. So here it actually was a story about trying to keep yourself up. Well, it from the outside, yeah, well, it's just a 6-year-old child that's having a trouble in his first swimming lesson, but for the child, it was what 30 seconds where the body thought it was drowning. And
mm.
then the body has a tendency to repeat these moments of fear over and over and over.
So what makes the body brings up this memory at this point in time? Because maybe, like you say, it was a child 6 years old, and now the person is 30 years old. What made the body bring this specific memory now to the surface?
I think here we are on the edge of what science has found out, but I'm pretty sure there are triggers.
Hmm.
Something can trick you into a certain state of mind or uh, um, some physical manifestation of a symptom. And I think the story is long, but instead of saying that chronic illness is terrible, I turn it around and say it's our survival skills.
Hmm.
They have kept you safe in all these situations. And trauma is your body learning what not to do.
Hmm.
So it's a faster way than thinking that should I go in this swimming pool or not? No, I shouldn't because I get triggered. So my body say never go there again because if
Hmm.
we take build on top of this situation. Um, so body memories and trauma is the body's expectations or prediction what will happen in in near future. And it's not up to you. There's no one to blame. It's your nature, our mammal nature. It's your instincts that has sort of captured dangerous situations. And then if you get triggered, see something that reminds you about that old trauma, then you get symptomatic and fearful again because no, I won't do that again.
Would you say that one of these triggers can be maybe an outset of fear? Like I know a lot of people had the symptoms exaggerated by the pandemic, for example. Would that be considered
I'm
a?
pretty sure that a lot. and a lot of people have got some new body memories due to the pandemic,
Mm.
because it was not so much Denmark, maybe, but other countries, it was extreme that you mustn't go out. It was a terrible thing around the whole globe. And so that cause fear and might give you a new body memory.
Mm.
And if we are there, I can tell about, might be a little funny story, but 10 years ago or plus more, when the Ebola was in Africa, I panicked totally. I freaked out. I
Mm.
got so fearful with the thought of this disease coming to Denmark, and it's pretty crazy because there's a long way from Africa to Denmark. And but I panicked and was so afraid and start buying stuff to protect myself. And then a little later, I, of course, knew how to deal with this. I was a coach at that time, but not professional. So I used my techniques, finding out that there's something wrong. I overreact to this. Something is going on. And what did I came to? I came to a situation where I was 4 or 5 years old, and my parents every Saturday was watching an English pandemic series where they walked around in full covered in strange outfit, and it was doom and gloom and foggy and people dying all over. So that was a body memory that was stuck in me. So as soon as I saw the visual stimuli of these guys in Africa walking around in safe clothes,
Hasn't
then
so, so, so.
I got this body memory back from this terrible series where everyone nearly died.
Mm.
And I deinstalled that, and when the COVID came, I was not afraid at all. But I'm
Mm.
pretty sure that there would be a lot of, especially children, that next time we get a pandemic or something like that, they get triggered because when they were 0, 1, 2, 3 years old, they can remember this drama, and maybe they had a mother that was terrible scared and
Mm.
did things that calm people wouldn't do.
Yeah. But it's yeah, it was crazy. The pandemic was definitely crazy. I want to ask a little bit more to hear a little bit more about the asking the symptoms what they mean. How 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 do you go about that to really um, dig down into that, dig
In
deep into that?
asking about the symptoms,
Mm.
number one, I, like, we probably have each 100, maybe more, body memories or traumas. So it's not important that we heal all of them, but we heal the one that's most annoying for people.
Hmm.
And the guys I'm talking with, they are manifesting themselves physically. So I ask, let's say one person has her sister, a visit from her sister, and it gave terrible symptoms. Then I will ask, how often do your sister visit you? If it's once a week, we can do something about it. If it's once a year, we'll leave it and find what is most annoying in your daily day. So
Mm.
the more often this trauma is triggered, the more important it is to find out what's the root cause and solve that.
Hmm.
So that's number one. We don't take all the things because, yeah, that's a lot. So when we take the most annoying one, it will be the either the amplitude of the symptom or the frequency will get down or less and less frequent. And then it's a little dependent what type of person it is. Some people are a little, oh, this become a little weird, this. Then I use a mild, people call it a hypnotic talk, where we just talk us through this, and some are more open-minded, and we can go directly, and the best is if they have the symptoms, so we can let the symptom talk. And it's often like that with people with Parkinson, that it is in an arm, and then you can ask people to follow, where does that tension lead you. So there was a woman that had a tremor, and she had a tension up here, and that was what dragged the arm up and down. And I say, let's see what's going on here when you raise this arm. It's a little difficult on this small screen, but she raised it like here, and I just helped her focus on this, focus on this, focus on this. And then suddenly, when I was 9 years old, my father was mad at me because he wanted that I became good at violin, but he yelled at me all the time. So once in a while we have these beautiful, nearly beautiful where things fit. There's also some Parkinson people that sort of reach out like this. And what's that? It might be from a near drowning accident where they try to get hold of something, a boat or a parent or something. So if it's in the extremities, that's a way forward. That's yeah, it's pretty amazing when you find these situations, because the body, if they are if the body is triggered, they try to do the same thing. The arms or legs try to do the same as when the trauma happened.
Mhm. And once you recognized, for example, the girl, the woman with the violin, now that she has the memory on her conscious awareness, what do you do next? How do you? I mean, is that enough to let it go, or I
I
guess not?
think there's hundreds of different way. I don't think I have the only answer, but just let it make it the do its job, and do deep breathing, and maybe think if you can find a way to heal the situation as it should have been. This father should never yell. I mean, I would be happy if my children even tried to play an instrument. So we must encourage this. So make a happy ending on a trauma. It's always a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. So I think it was very interesting at the beginning when you said people with Parkinson's, and of course other conditions as well. People really don't recognize that there is the factor of stress in how they're feeling. But you went exactly there. You went to the stress, and you show them that actually when the stress goes away, the conditions change as well, and they become better. So
But there can be many, they can have 100 traumas. So
yeah.
it's a tiny fraction we take away for every session. And you can say in the bigger picture that that's maybe number one thing that people don't get with alternative healing. That is, if they go to you and me and have one session, they have maybe 1 in 100 trauma solved, and that doesn't make a big impact. But if
Mm,
you continue to get one or two trauma healed per session, then it slowly you will clean up this pile of body memories and traumas.
yeah.
So, of course, you will not, if you have 100 body memories, I call them body memories because they can be pretty tiny as
Mm,
well. So if you say, maybe I've probably got 100, some maybe have more, and then you just clean out one after the other, then the long-term persistent work will show you that slowly, slowly your symptoms will dampen. And maybe if it's your sister, you next time you will not get um, symptomatic when she is there, but you can get symptomatic in another situation where you have another trauma
Mm.
triggering you, another body memory. Just to take the idea of trauma, I don't like it because we have big traumas like accident, death, rape, violence. But typical people with chronic disease, a few have these, but most have a lot of smaller things that we would never ever call trauma, like the situation where a boy maybe for 2 minutes are struggling in the water, and then of course he didn't drown, so some adult pick him up, but it was enough for the body to say, this is wrong, I'm
Mm.
drowning. So the body put a bookmark here, and just to tell how tiny it can be, I, for example, been riding horses when I was a teenager. And in Denmark, it can be pretty cold in the winter. So riding with boots, too cheap boots, plastic boots in minus 10 degrees frost. Um, After an hour on a horseback and another hour before I came home, your feet are nearly, yeah, dead with no blood, and it hurt a lot to take off the boots, and all the blood is streaming into your feet. Hurts a lot, but it's not a trauma. But the body consider it. You could have died. The body don't know that it's just me riding on a horse. The body notice your feet is dying off you. This is important. This is so important. I put a body memory on you, or a tiny trauma, whatever you can call it. And what happened 50 years later, I started when the temperature shifted and I was just in socks in my flat, and I got a little cold. I got this burning heat coming to my feet as I did 50 years ago, taking off my boots. So there's logically no big things going on,
Mm.
but your body thought this was dangerous. And think, if I was out maybe 5 hours more, I might have died. But I
Mm.
was in control, but my body said, no, 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 this was dangerous. Don't go there again.
I really like that, because a lot of the time when people talk, when I talk with people and we talk about emotions, and people, they kind of don't want to go there necessarily, even though even in direct conversations that I have with people, even I can hear people when they're talking emotions. People are scared of emotion. People seem to be scared of admitting that they're feeling emotions, that they're scared, that they're nervous, that they're hurt, all of these. And and when you're talking about these things, it's not about the emotion, it's about the stress. And the stress, yes, maybe it is also because you didn't know how to process the emotion, but it's also because your body made a conclusion that you now, now, like you say, you have a body memory. I really like this term. And it makes it feel like it's a little bit easier, kind of an easier conversation, because it's not emotion, it's what your body is kind of
It's you and it's
remembering.
your body, and it's nothing you can say. Of course, it's you, but it's not up to you to decide if it's become stuck in your body or not. It's your nature, it's your biology. And if you are together with nice, calming, loving people, it won't stick as a body memory. But if you are alone and don't know what to do, it probably gets stuck there. But it's not
Mm,
up to you to decide.
mm,
Your biology take over.
yeah. So tell me, we mentioned mammals. What is the connection with mammals to the work that you do?
Yeah, but we are a mammal. So that is number one thing that science and doctors hasn't figured out. And it's a little funny, but of course, as a biologist, I think it's more natural. We have our full mammal instincts intact. And that's why we're sitting here. We are the survivors that did all the right thing, including getting scared of everything because that made us run away from the danger instead of, oh, it will not come today, this line. These type of people got eaten. So we are the successes, the fearful ones that ran every time we saw a shadow. Um, so embracing fight, flight, and freeze, then things start to make sense. So these body memories, our tendency to be angry and nervous, it's part of our nature.
Mhm.
And it was so much faster to put a body memory, so we don't need to think, should I go right? There's a line behind me. Should I go right? Should I go left? No, you have a body memory telling you that it's best to go left, because if you go right, you end up in a cave or a dead end somewhere and will be. So we need these body memories in order to act faster than thinking.
Mhm.
But the problem is we have developed a culture that is not like the nature. We are sitting still. So if there's a threat, if our teacher is not nice to us, we have learned to just sit still and behave instead of running from him. If he's not nice to us, we should run. If it's another bully, if it's a bully that's not nice to you, we have learned to sort of endure that we mustn't fight with
Mm.
them. We should just behave, and things get stuck in these body memories.
Mm.
So it's due to our still sitting culture that we get out in all these troubles. If we were still working 10 hours a day in the fields, we probably wouldn't get it, because we wouldn't build up the adrenaline that causes all these things.
So when you talk about mammals, of course we are mammals too. But when we talk about the animal kingdom, for example, so yeah, animals do that, right? They know when to run, to freeze, to fight, to flight. They know all of that instinctively. Um, but we have a situation where we feel like our nervous system is just really out of whack. That we no longer trust necessarily that we even know how to behave, because we're kind of stuck in that loop of, maybe it's just a freeze, or maybe it's just a fright. Um, is the situation? I mean, can animals have a nervous system that is also out of whack?
Yeah, we have exactly the same nervous system. So you will see that domesticated animals, they get the same problems as us. Because if you have a dog on the leash, then it cannot react naturally. It
Hmm.
cannot run if it see a bigger dog. It cannot fight if it see a dog that is not behaving. We keep them on a leash, and you see them tremoring, and there you have the Parkinson symptoms. They tremor in either excitement because they want to interact with this, or they tremor in fear because it's is the signals from the other dog is showing that this is not good. And also see it in horses, because we put them in small boxes, we have them on a leash, so they cannot react either.
Hmm.
So every time we restrict an animal, they start to become symptomatic as us. If you've seen zoo animals, they walk back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, or doing some automatic movement because they are stressed.
Mm. That's so sad. It's so sad. Um,
We put
right,
them
but
in prison. It's another longer story, but we put animals in prison. So they, of course, react like if we are put in prison.
can we always get our nervous system back to a normal operating, or can it sometimes be too late?
It's more a matter of what the person believes themselves. If they
Mm.
think it's too late, they don't do the work and will never come to the work. If they think, okay, I have a chance and start doing the work, they become a little better, a little better, a little better, a little better, and little better. And you can say, of course, we are the best when we are 27 years, and then we decline a little, we get wrinkles and slower, and but we can start doing some more exercise, we can start doing some work, but of course we will end up dying. So it's up to the individual. But I have clients that are 75 years that still consider it as a good thing to invest in themselves
Yeah.
and do it, because even it might, let's say it take if you are intensive, it might take a year, but if you prolong it, it takes more years. But
Mm.
the road to better health is also nice. That I got a little more symptoms. In this situation, I'm not triggered anymore. That's nice to become more and more healthy.
Yeah. So tell us, give us a success story, for one of the people that you worked with.
I have one woman from America that you can find her videos, that she was very symptomatic when we started. I could see that some of it was due to the pills they take, but she was walking with a cane, for example. Now she is not walking with a cane. And the doctors at the local university where she's coming start asking her questions. What do you do? What's going on? Um, I and she tell them, but they don't get it. They cannot. Science cannot connect the dots as it is now. They are come a little closer, but it's too big a step.
Mm.
They are digging into the brain, which neurons with chemical is not working. But I think you have to be a biologist to see this, that it's our mammal nature that's causing all this.
Mm.
So I have a guy that has Parkinson, been pretty bad in the regard his feet is locking, so he cannot walk for maybe 15 minutes at a time. He has a voice that is very affected, so it's been very difficult to hear what he's telling. And he sent me a story. He's just been on at a neurologist, and this neurologist said that he has reduced his medication 50%. He came without his wheelchair this time, and she said if he next time still was improving, she would consider that he didn't have Parkinson's. And that's why it become a little funny, because she gave him the diagnosis me and him did some work, and now she considered that the diagnosis was wrong, but she didn't ask what was going on and what do you think. The narrative is so strong that these guys can only become worse and worse. So they cannot make the jump that no, they can become better and better. And how much, it's more a matter of how much you nerd with your thoughts, your traumas, your body memories, your how to become better, exercising, and so on.
It's I hear a lot from clients that maybe they have any type of chronic illness, and they go on these Facebook groups, and they say, maybe after we work together, or maybe they say, I've healed myself naturally. There is a way, and they say, well, all of a sudden, everyone in the Facebook group kind of, "Rawr," and they don't believe, and they don't want to believe, and they say, well, probably you were not even really ill in that thing, and the disbelief is really is shocking because
It's
it stops
it's
people from
very
getting better.
strong,
Yeah,
but it's cracking a little, for example, in the Parkinson world, because I don't know, but I hope, because I have success stories in my YouTube channel, so that now finally when people search, they find positive stories that you
yes,
can become better. For a few years ago, you didn't find them, these
yeah,
stories. But now it's possible. Until now, it's been people that had the ability themselves to make a YouTube channel or a web page, and that's not easy. Now, for example, if I hear about a person becoming better, I make an interview with them and ask questions like we do here. What have you
mm,
done? What's your mindset? And so now people can make a Google search and find these stories. So the beliefs out there are cracking. So that
yeah.
part is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel that it's, there is, it feels like a movement. We are helping to show people that they can heal themselves naturally. We don't say don't take your pills because we don't, it's not what we do, but we want to show that there is a way to move forward, even when the doctors say that there is no cure or no way of healing.
It's
Um,
and even if people say, yeah, but then you have a wrong diagnosis. What if half the people have the wrong diagnosis?
hmm.
You can say
Very
the
good question.
the guys that I help, they typically get another diagnosis, or shut the door to the neurologist, or just become better and enjoy life more.
Hmm. And I think that's a very good point. That actually maybe it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, but if you look at your life and you remove the stress and you remove the toxic people and environments, maybe you will get better.
Yeah, yeah. And you can also say, why is people toxic? It's because they trigger you. If you don't have the triggers, they are probably not toxic anymore,
Right.
because they remind you about something. If you have a terrible relationship and there's one person that's toxic, it's probably because they are triggering you something in your past. You had a father or mother that was like that, or a bully that was like that.
Mm,
So if you heal healing these wounds, you are able to say stop, no more. And if they are still stupid, you can walk away from them. But
yeah.
if they are toxic or not, we don't know before we have healed the wounds that they push at all the time.
Yeah. The triggers. So it's nearly time. Well, it's nearly time to say goodbye. I feel I could really speak with you for forever. But just before we go for today, what is one thing that you think is really important for people to? What is the one message that you think is very important for people to take away from this conversation today?
As you can see, I call myself for Hope Shortcut and on my webpage. And it's because hope is the most important thing to install. Instead of going with the doctor's narrative that you can only become worse, that allow yourself to get a little crack in that there is hope. And even if it's you just remove the stress from receiving the bills from the mailman, it's still some stress that are helping you going forward.
Mm,
Taking allow the hope to crack the narrative you've been told. And when there's hope, you can take the first step. If you have no hope, why invest money? It's like if you don't hope that uh, your boyfriend and you can stay together, why get married? So we hope the best, and when we hope something, we can start to engage and take the steps that is necessary for you. We are all different, so um, it's different what sort of therapies you need. It's different what mindset change you need to take, and so on. But the most important is to crack the old belief. There is hope.
yeah, I love it. I think it's so important. I definitely see it also in my clients. The people that believe that that they can heal, they do, and the people that doubt, that takes longer.
Yeah,
But
that's
yes,
natural because if you have doubts, why should I invest a lot of money in things I don't believe in? So it
yeah,
it sort of became uh, uh, it's natural if I look at a pair of shoes and I don't believe that I can keep them clean, or I don't believe that they are dry in wet weather, or I believe I won't buy them. So
mm,
the hope is the first to install.
hope, yes, absolutely. Lilian, it's been wonderful talking with you and hearing about the incredible work that you do and the success stories that you have. Of course, all of your information will be wherever the people watching or listening to this conversation. So I encourage people to get in touch, to have the conversation, to really just take that hope one step further. Lilian, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you.